Hey, this is Chris. Hope you're doing well, and welcome to Popcorn Finance, the show where we discuss finance and about the time it takes to make a bag of popcorn. It's tax season, and for many of us, that means it's a time full of confusion and also many, many more questions to go along with that. And so I thought to help make this time of the year feel a little bit better, a little less stressful, I get a little bit of help here on the podcast. So I'm excited to be joined by Andy Phillips, a director with the Tax Institute at H&R Block. So Andy, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Chris. First, thank you for having me. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's good to have you back on again. It's been about a year since the last time we spoke.
That's right.
Tax season came back again. It didn't decide to skip a year. It has
a habit of doing that, and this is usually when people want to talk to me. The rest of the year, not so much.
Well, I mean, hey, this is going to be your peak of popularity right
it's
now.
It's my time to shine.
Hey, but I want to ask you too, before we get into any deep tax questions here, I'm curious, like what do you do as a tax director at the Tax Institute for H&R Block? What does that mean? That's a pretty cool title.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So the Tax Institute, the department I work in, we're a group at H&R Block's corporate headquarters of kind of tax experts, or I like to say tax nerds. And we like to help, we like to use our tax expertise to help fuel the business in a variety of ways. We help with providing a lens of tax expertise on a lot of kind of our marketing and related content. A lot of what you see on our website when it's tax related, we help review that. We also help our tax professionals. We've got about 10,000 offices just here in the U.S. and a lot of tax pros working in those offices. So when they are dealing with a new, novel, or just really complex issue with one of their clients, we're there in the background to kind of be their support behind the scenes to help them address those really thorny tax issues. And then we get to work with the IRS on a pretty regular basis. To help ensure that that we keep a good partnership there for our customers. And then the last piece is get to do fun stuff like this and help bring tax knowledge to people and represent H&R Block publicly.
Hey, well, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day. And I think as the right person, if you're the person that people doing taxes turn to when they need help, I'm pretty confident you can answer some of the questions that I have for you today.
I hope I can help.
Well, I want to open up with this thing I've been hearing a lot online about how the IRS is just really overwhelmed right now. And how is that going to impact all of us this tax season with them just being inundated with, I guess, stuff this year, stuff hanging over from last year, all this stuff together?
Sure. It does go back a couple of years. So a little kind of context setting, going back to March 2020, when the COVID pandemic really first hit, like a lot of other organizations, the IRS, the commissioner of the IRS made a decision for the safety and health of his employees to shut down temporarily a lot of their processing centers that are processing tax returns, all of that paper that comes in, paper tax returns, correspondence, letters, and things like that. It took them several months to be able to kind of take some of that work and turn it into work from home friendly format. And then some of that still has to be worked in their physical offices. So what that means, obviously, as the pandemic's continued, they've had to go with less staffing. They've had to, do things like social distancing and just less staff. And they've been asked to do a lot more. In addition to just running tax season, the IRS has administered 3 rounds of economic impact, or commonly called stimulus payments. And then we'll get to this in a minute, but they also had the opportunity to advance a portion of the child tax credit over the second half of 2021.
That's right.
So all of that adds up to the IRS just really does have a backlog right now, or inventory of prior year work. Largely, it's consisted of paper. So anyone that's submitting paper to the IRS can expect kind of a lengthy wait as they work through that. But that's where we are today, is that the IRS is dealing with inventory, not just from the current year, but going back at least 1 year, and sometimes in some cases more.
Is it that prevalent for people to be sending in paper returns still? Because I did that back in the day when I filled out my first ever tax return. I did it by hand on paper, and I hated it, and so I stopped immediately. So is that still a thing?
It is. So over 90% of people do file electronically, and it's something like 97% either file using a tax professional that really does the legwork for them, or they use do-it-yourself software like H&R Block has an online do-it-yourself program that folks can use. But either by choice or because they just have some issue, some folks aren't able to or choose not to file electronically. And so certainly those folks are impacted by the IRS backlog. And a big tip I have for today is make sure you file electronically because that's really going to speed the processing of your tax return. The second thing I'd like to just hit on, kind of a tip for your folks that are tuning in, is if your return falls into special processing, meaning the IRS kind of takes it out of the happy path and a human has to look at it. Um, Again, you're going to deal with a meaningful delay in the processing of your tax return. The most common reasons you might experience that is you are either claiming the recovery rebate credit for those people that feel like they didn't get all of the stimulus money they were entitled to during 2021. They claim any remaining stimulus money as a recovery rebate credit. Well, as part of that process, you have to accurately report what you got during the year and kind of that third stimulus round of payments. And if you don't do that, you're going to fall into special processing. Likewise, if you're claiming the child tax credit and you don't properly report the amount of child tax credit payments you got as an advance during the second half of 2021, your return is immediately going to fall out into special processing at the IRS. Two things. One, it's going to delay you receiving that tax refund, which for some folks that can cause economic hardships. So that's really important. And then two, you may find that you're getting less refund than you expected or that you claimed on your tax return because you didn't report all those advance payments properly. And so big tip there, make sure you get it right to avoid delays and the unwanted surprise of a reduced tax refund.
Oh, okay, it's good to know. It's these little things that kind of add up that you don't really think about because of how complex the whole process is of filing your taxes. And I think because of the complexity too, we often end up with a lot of questions. And I've heard and actually experienced how long the wait times are this year when you actually call into the IRS with the great hold music and just sitting there for like 2 hours waiting for anyone, to answer the phone. Is that still the best way to try to get a hold of them via the phone, or are there other options?
It's really not. You are correct. It's substantial wait times to contact the IRS right now. And their handle rate or their service rate is generally somewhere around 10%, meaning a lot of people just aren't getting through. So if you really need something from the IRS, look at their self-help tools, and I'm going to specifically point to two online tools that people should really use. If you're just wondering the status of your tax refund, use the Where's My Refund application. It's available on irs.gov. Super helpful, quick way to get a status update. Likewise, if you just need to get something from your tax account, like, hey, I think I want to look at my transcript. I think I'm missing a 1099 or a W-2, or I can't remember how much stimulus money I got. Let me check with the IRS. Use their online account, set up an online account, and use that self-service tool to make sure that you're not dealing with a lengthy delay. And another thing is, if you have tax questions, a lot of folks call the IRS when they have tax questions. A few years ago, the IRS stopped answering those on the phone. So if you do have questions, either work with a professional or use a do-it-yourself product that has a lot of good built-in self-help content. And then I'll give a plug for H&R Block here. We have tax professionals. We have a top-of-the-line do-it-yourself product. We also have a website, www.hrblock.com, with a lot of resources. Our tax information center is just filled with FAQs and articles for people to get their questions answered without ever speaking to a human if that's their desire. So use what's available to you without waiting in line for the IRS for sure.
Oh, thanks for that advice, because I think that's the worst. Is you're struggling, you want to get your questions answered, you call the IRS, you wait on hold for 2 hours, and then they're like, "Oh, sorry, we can't answer your question." So I appreciate you helping a lot of people save a lot of time up front before they get that big dose of disappointment.
Yes, sir. Some surprises are good. That's probably not a good one for most.
No, not at all. But I wanted to wrap up with this last question for you here about the child tax credit, because I know it saw some big changes in 2021, specifically like in the back half of 2021. Could you first explain to people what the child tax credit is if they're not familiar with it, and then also how will this impact tax season this year as people are getting ready and filing their tax returns?
Sure. So to your first question, the child tax credit has been around for several years, and some of the high points are that's a credit that you claim on your federal tax return that for children that meet certain eligibility requirements. Generally, they need to meet certain relationship tests. They're a child, stepchild, foster child, or a sibling, is another common relationship that you care for, that you're providing over half of their financial support. So you think about someone, if you think about kind of some of those dependency rules or someone that you're really, caring for financially, then that's another test. And then generally someone who lives with you over the half of the year has a social security number. And in most years, it was that they were under 17. So in prior years, that credit was, $2,000, which is a great credit, and that's per eligible child. One thing that held people back from getting the full benefit was that it was not fully refundable. So what that means is that people, that didn't owe any money to the IRS, particularly people that maybe don't make a tremendous amount of income, instead of getting the full $2,000, they were only able to get up to $1,400 as a refundable credit. So it limited the benefit for some taxpayers.
Okay.
Yeah. And so then your second question was, what's changed this year? So first, the credit is fully refundable. That means even if you don't owe any taxes, even if you haven't made any income, but you have an eligible child, you get the full tax credit as long as they meet the other eligibility requirements. The second piece is, in prior years, it was that the child was under 17 during the year. Well, a special one-time rule for 2021 is they can be up to 17 years old. So like a high school senior, that you're taking care of, so you may get one more year of claiming this really valuable credit for that child. The next one is that the credit has been expanded substantially. So it's been 2,000 for a few years now. For 2021 only, it's much bigger. So for kids that are age 6 to 17, you can get $3,000 credit. And for eligible children under 6, it's $3,600 per eligible child.
That's pretty.
And so that's a really big one as well. Yeah, that will be hopefully a nice surprise for folks.
Yeah.
The last piece I'll touch on, which was new this year, is that this new expanded credit came as a result of the American Rescue Plan Act that was passed back in March of 2021. And the last part of that was that up to one half of the credit was advanced in monthly payments starting in July of last year. So you may have started to notice beginning in July that you were getting a monthly payment of somewhere between $250 to $300 per eligible child. And you may have first been like, what the heck is this? You look at your bank account and happy to have the money, but what is it? You would have seen on your bank statement, it said something like child tax credit, so you probably would have been able to figure it out. But what you have to do when filing your tax return this year is make sure that you account for the advance payments you got when claiming the child tax credit. Because how it's going to work, let's say you've got one child that's eligible for a $3,000 credit and you got $1,500 advanced. So you're going to be able to, you're going to figure the credit on your tax return. You do have to account for the amount you got advanced, but then you get the remainder, which in that case would be $1,500 with your tax refund. You would have gotten a letter 6419 either in December or January telling you how much advance you got. Really important to make sure you have that on hand, because if you don't get that reconciliation piece right where you put in the proper advance payment amount, you are going to fall into special processing with the IRS. And if you undershoot or understate the advance payment, you are going to potentially, it's not potentially, you're going to get less refund than you claimed. So it's an important year to get it right.
Oh, okay. So that's something key to keep in mind there. Like if you're not holding onto that paperwork that shows up and you end up guessing what you think you got advanced, that could really kind of mess things up for you, either affecting your refund or cause a slowdown in the whole process, it sounds like. Andy, thank you so much for answering these questions, especially the one on the child tax credit. I was kind of curious about that. I've heard a lot. I don't have any kids, so I haven't personally got to experience this, but I've heard a lot about it. And so it's interesting to hear how that's flowing through the whole process, at least for 2021.
That's right.
But people don't know, they should know at this point, H&R Block, they've been bringing a lot of popcorn to the podcast all month long. And so, Andy, if people want some help filing their taxes because they got a lot of stuff going on, I think just our short conversation here proved how complicated and how complex filing your taxes can be sometimes. What are some options out there for them if they need some help taking care of all this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I talked about one provision in the American Rescue Plan. There are several more. EITC, or the Earned Income Credit, got expanded. The dependent care credit for those families that are paying for childcare so they can work or look for work, that got expanded in a really big way. Make sure you're taking advantage of these and getting all the tax credits and deductions to which you're entitled. H&R Block's here to help. And it doesn't matter how you want to file. We've got a top of the line online do-it-yourself product where you can go end to end on your own, filled with self-help content. Maybe you want to raise your hand along the way and just ask a question of one of our tax experts. You can do that. Or maybe you just feel like I'm a little bit over my head and I just want to kind of hand this off to someone. Well, we have a feature called Tax Pro Review where you can actually wrap up your return and one of our tax professionals will fully look it over, make sure you got it all right and file it for you. So we've got that option in our do-it-yourself space to give you whatever level of help you need. And then you may say, no, I want to hand it off to an expert from the start. We can cover you there as well. We've got, we've got we've got offices open all over the country where we're able to help, generally within 5 miles of the vast majority of Americans. Maybe you say, nope, I want to work with someone from the comfort of my own home. Maybe I'm just not venturing out yet due to COVID concerns, or it's just more convenient. You can work with one of our tax professionals end to end without ever leaving your couch or taking off your pajamas. So we've got you covered with options, and more information is available at www.hnrblock.com or hrblock.com to kind of figure out what's best for you.
Yeah, well, hey, thanks, Andy. I'll make sure that all goes in the links, whether you're watching the video or listening to the podcast.
Awesome.
So the links will be available for you there.
Thank you.
If you want to get some help this tax season and not stress yourself out with all these numbers and acronyms and everything we've talked about so far. But Andy, it's always great having you on the podcast. I appreciate all the information, making us all feel a little bit better this tax season, and definitely got to have you back on again.
Absolutely, Chris. Thank you so much for having me, and hopefully I get invited back next year.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm sure they're gonna ask for my tax filing again next year, so I'll be reaching out.
It's funny how that works.
Your boy keep it poppin' like Mary Poppins.